When did Hitler's generals know they'd lost? Picture this. It's November 1941. Snow falls on the outskirts of Moscow. A German field marshal stands in his command post, staring at a map that no longer makes sense. His panzers, which had rolled through France in 6 weeks, have ground to a halt. The Red Army, supposedly beaten, keeps appearing with fresh divisions. His men are freezing in summer uniforms. Fuel convoys are stranded hundreds of kilometers back. He doesn't say it aloud, not yet. But in that moment, he knows. The war is already lost. The illusion of invincibility. Just 5 months earlier, the Wehrmacht had seemed unstoppable. In less than 2 years, Hitler's armies had conquered Poland, France, Norway, and the Balkans. When Operation Barbarossa thundered across the Soviet border on June 22, 1941, victory seemed inevitable. Panzer columns advanced hundreds of kilometers within weeks. Prisoners flooded in by the hundreds of thousands. But beneath the triumph, unease was growing. Veterans of World War I recognized the warning signs: fronts too wide, supply lines too fragile, enemies too numerous. Heinz Guderian's tanks raced ahead while supply trucks crawled through mud roads. Berlin demanded deeper advances into Russia's vast interior, ignoring the logistics of conquest. By winter, reality hit like a frozen hammer. The Soviets hadn't collapsed. Fresh divisions appeared from Siberia. Temperatures plunged below freezing, equipment failed, and the invincible Wehrmacht stalled for the first time. That winter, in frigid headquarters across the Eastern Front, the first fatal doubts took root. This wasn't the quick campaign they'd planned. It was a war of attrition they couldn't win. Stalingrad. The myth shatters. Hitler demanded renewed offensives in 1942. The Wehrmacht drove toward the Caucasus oil fields and the Volga River, splitting forces across impossible distances. Field Marshal von Bock warned this risked catastrophe. Hitler dismissed him. You always see black clouds. By autumn, German forces were trapped in brutal street fighting in Stalingrad. When Soviet forces encircled the entire Sixth Army in November, it stunned Berlin, but not the officers who'd seen it coming. For the first time, an entire German field army was doomed. General Friedrich Paulus pleaded for permission to break out. Hitler refused. The Sixth Army perished where it stood. Stalingrad shattered everything. If this could happen to Germany's finest soldiers, what hope remained? The unspoken question spread like poison through the officer corps. Kursk. The last gamble. In summer 1943, the Wehrmacht launched one final massive offensive at Kursk, hoping to restore balance on the Eastern Front. But intelligence showed the Soviets were heavily fortified. The element of surprise was gone. Many generals privately doubted the plan would work. They were right. The Red Army's defenses held. German armor was decimated. After Kursk collapsed, there would be no more victories, only retreat. Even the most loyal officers now sensed the inevitable. Hitler ranted about miracle weapons, but the generals could read their maps. The Red Army was advancing westward. The Allies would soon invade from the west. German industry couldn't replace losses. Allied bombers ruled the skies. The U-boat fleet was being destroyed. By late 1943, the arrogance of 1940 had given way to quiet fatalism. Some officers began contemplating the unthinkable, removing Hitler himself. Men like Klaus von Stauffenberg concluded that killing him wasn't treason. It was salvation. But the Gestapo was everywhere, and most officers chose silence over action. The final collapse. D-Day made everything undeniable. When Allied armies stormed Normandy on June 6, 1944, it was clear Germany couldn't fight on two fronts. Field Marshal Rommel toured the Western Front and confided to his staff, "The war is hopeless. Every day we prolong this is a crime." When the July 20th plot to assassinate Hitler failed, Rommel was implicated and forced to commit suicide. Other conspirators were executed. The officer corps was decimated by its own despair. By early 1945, Germany was collapsing everywhere. The Red Army pushed through East Prussia. The Western Allies crossed the Rhine. Yet Hitler kept issuing impossible orders: hold cities to the last man, counterattack with armies that no longer existed. Many generals stopped obeying. They falsified reports, ignored orders, quietly surrendered. In April, as Soviets closed in on Berlin, Hitler finally admitted what his generals had known for years: the war was lost. The tragedy of complicity. How could intelligent, seasoned officers delude themselves for so long? The answer lies in ideology, pride, and fear. Many shared Hitler's contempt for democracy and hatred of communism. They believed he'd restored Germany's honor. To admit defeat was to admit everything since 1918 had been a lie. Others were trapped by the Wehrmacht's culture of obedience. To rebel wasn't just betraying a leader, it was betraying their entire identity as soldiers. When defeat's first hints appeared, most chose denial. When defeat became certain, they lacked the courage to act. There were exceptions: Stauffenberg, Beck, Tresckow, who risked everything to end the madness. Their failure sealed Germany's fate. After July 1944, the war became futile, a slow-motion collapse driven by inertia and terror. Millions more died before the inevitable surrender. When they knew, the tragedy of Germany's generals wasn't that they recognized defeat too late. It was that even when they did, they lacked the will to stop it. By 1943, the war was strategically lost. By 1944, militarily hopeless. By 1945, morally bankrupt. But long before Berlin fell, in quiet moments between battles, many of Hitler's generals had already surrendered in their hearts. They could see what he couldn't: that Germany's destiny was sealed not in Berlin's ruins, but in 1941's arrogance, when they mistook lightning war for omnipotence. The Wehrmacht kept fighting long after it knew it was beaten. In doing so, it ensured defeat would destroy not only Hitler, but the nation he'd promised to make eternal. Defeat didn't unfold in one climactic moment. It crept in as awareness, spreading through men who once believed they commanded destiny itself. There was no announcement, no proclamation, only silence, disbelief, and the slow disintegration of faith. They'd gambled everything on victory. When it failed them, nothing remained.